Hey guys, in this video I'm going to talk about a new word that I think is needed in motocross, and that is to describe what's normally referred to as being centered on the bike. Okay, before I've talked about this skill, it's actually a skill, okay, and it's actually the most important skill in motocross if you ask me. But before I've referred to it as the ability to be center balanced on the bike, but actually I've found an even better word now, and I call it active balance, or your skill of active balancing. Okay, and the reason why it should be called active balance is that it's not a stationary position. It's actually your ability to constantly shift your balance forward or backwards on the bike depending on your amount of throttle and braking. You actually have to synchronize your balance and position on the bike to your amount of throttle and braking, and also your amount of desired traction on the back wheel. So sometimes you also shift your weight slightly towards the rear to invest some energy to get more traction if it's slippery conditions. Okay, but that's another story. And interestingly, I saw a presentation by Coach Ryan Hughes where he shortly mentioned the word balancing on the bike, and he said something that really surprised me. I'm paraphrasing here, okay? He said something like, you don't have to develop any more balance on the bike than you can maintain your body position on the bike. And I completely disagree with this because, as I said, balancing on the bike is the most important skill for riding at the highest level in motocross. And I can actually give a lot of deeper explanations to why this is. And I'm sure actually that Coach Ryan Hughes, he will agree on this, because we agree on almost everything about riding technique. Especially one thing that I really like about his teachings is that the bike is supposed to be met with softness, okay? But in order to meet the handlebars with softness, you need to be unlocked and loose in your arms, right? So now to my point, in order to generate looseness in your arms, that has to come through exceptionally good balance on the bike constantly. You have to be constantly balanced in a way so that you can unlock your arms. As soon as you're off balance to the rear, you're going to end up pulling the handlebars excessively. And as soon as you're off balance with too much weight towards the front, you're going to be pressing down into the grips too heavily. And in both cases, you are off balance and you're not able to meet the handlebars with softness. You're going to be hard on the handlebars and grip hard. Okay? So that's my point, that I think that Coach Ryan Hughes, he will agree with. And that is why it's so important to ride with maximal efficiency. Because remember, the goal of riding technique, the overall goal of riding technique, is to ride as fast as possible with as little effort as possible and with as much control as possible. So it's a three-factor equation, okay? So it's not entirely simple, it's slightly complicated, but we're trying to make it as simple as possible. And that's also what I'm doing in my 4D body position program and the Masterclass series that you can access by clicking the join button below and thereby become a channel member if you think this stuff is interesting. I will also explain actually why I believe that Ryan Hughes, he downplayed the importance of balance, and I have a really good explanation for that. We're talking about balance, right? So all adult human beings are able to walk around balancing effortlessly on their feet, right? Now, I'm going to prove a point, and that is that balancing on a motocross bike is more complex than learning to walking on your hands, okay? And this may sound like a surprise, but bear with me, and if you stick with me, you're probably gonna agree at the end of the video, or actually soon. In case you're not quite convinced yet that balancing and learning a new type of balancing is actually a complex problem neurologically, then I'm gonna prove it to you, and I'm even gonna give you a way to prove it to yourself at your home if you're not convinced yet. So I'm gonna take this wrench, and then I'm gonna try to balance it on my hand. So the overall point of this is that we agree that we all have learned to balance on our feet effortlessly walking around, right? Because we spent many years practicing this when we were very small. So we now take it for granted that it's easy to balance, just like some coaches do out there. Now I'm going to prove that it's a complex task to learn to balance in a new way. I'll show you by using this wrench to balance it on my hand. So if it was easy to balance something in a new way, I should be able to use my ability to balance on my feet to also balance this wrench, right? So now I'm gonna try. That didn't last long. There's a little thing that's good to be aware of when you're trying this, okay? And that is, the shorter the object, the more difficult it is. I'll also show you with the set of handlebars, okay? So the longer the object is, the easier it is to balance it. So let's see. I think I can do it for a bit longer with this one. Oh, okay. So that was maybe 3 times longer. And it is actually possible. Heavier object that's heavy on top, it's a little bit easier. So it is possible with a longer object to learn to do it. But if you think it's so simple to balance something, you should definitely take the short one and then try it out. Because you need to build a new neurological circuit in your brain in order to do it with ease. And I usually tell people to learn to balance on a motocross bike correctly takes about 2 years, or it took me about 2 years to learn to ride completely effortless and unlocked with my arms. And by the way that you practice to balance on a motocross bike and develop this new neurological circuit is by riding with one hand. So you only have your throttle hand, and you've seen coaches, actually my favorite coach is AJ Catanzaro. You've seen him do this one-hand drill a lot. And this is the only way and the best way that you can really develop this skill of balancing in the foot pegs. So the best drill is to ride with one hand, only the throttle hand on the grip, attack position, and then I put the other hand on my side, on my hip, or you can put it on the stomach, as AJ Catanzaro does, but I put it on the side like this when I practice one-hand drill. And once you have learned this skill, this is the cool part, once you have learned it to do it effortlessly, it's like walking. It becomes effortless and automatic. And I don't actually do this drill very often anymore because it's already automatic. I already learned it. It's already built in. So sometimes when I do the drill, I'm pleasantly surprised that, hey, I can still do it with ease because I've learned to do it. It's already built in. So if you cannot ride with one hand effortlessly and maintain your balance and synchronize your balance with throttle and brakes, then you need to practice it more because you don't have the ability to balance on the bike yet, okay? You can do it both sitting and standing. You can also even transition from sitting to standing with your hand on the side and only riding with one hand. You can even operate the brakes as well when you do the drill. Okay, you just have to be careful doing the big jumps and the bumpy sections because that can throw you off, but it's not impossible, okay? If you found this useful, you're welcome. If you're learning to walk on your hands, you have to build a new neural circuit in your brain that does the same job as when you're walking on your feet, but just upside down, okay? So it's the same process, it's the same factors that are included in the neural network equations to make this happen, okay? Now, the reason why it's more complicated and it's a more complex neural network you're gonna have to build in your brain for riding a dirt bike is, even though you're standing on your feet, you have to learn to balance while synchronizing your balance with the acceleration that is controlled through your hand and the brakes that are controlled through your finger and your foot on the foot brake, and the bike bouncing all over the place and constantly pivoting around the foot pegs. Basically, you have to learn balancing with a lot of external factors trying to throw you off balance all the time. Plus, you have to synchronize your balance with input that you are putting into the system through your hand and your fingers and your foot. So you are affecting the system by these new factors, like how it throws the balance forward and backwards with throttle and braking. And then you also do all this while the bike itself from the external environment and the track conditions are bouncing all around the place. So that's why walking on your hands, in terms of building a neural network in your brain, is probably going to be simpler and a lot more alike to the neural network of just walking on your feet. So this is a little bit sciencey, but it's interesting. So my overall point is that because Ryan Hughes, he's such a good rider, he has learned this active balancing so well that he just thinks it's basically the same thing as walking on your feet. He thinks it's the same neural network that you're using, but it's actually way more complex than that. So if you take it for granted that it's just the same and it's not more complex than that, he has already learned to do it so well, so it's just running on autopilot. And it's the same for a lot of pros. When they have learned super high level skills, such as doing a whip or a scrub, they can do it automatically without even really knowing how they do it, okay? Anyways, that was a long talk about balancing on the bike. If you're interested in my full body position program, make sure you consider clicking the join button and thereby accessing my 4D body position program. Thank you for watching and see you on the next one. To watch the full version of my advanced riding videos and support the development of this channel, click the join button below and become a member. And thereby you will get access to exclusive videos where I go through the most advanced skill levels and also explaining things from a physics standpoint, because I have a background in science and thereby studying physics, so I'm able to explain actual riding technique and the mechanics of riding, also bike setup, in a way that you don't see on many other channels. Also, I share my own step-by-step methods on how I track my own progress and riding technique development. So if you're interested in that, consider becoming a member and clicking the join button. And if you like tropical island holidays, visit fitcamp5.com for my 2-time TripAdvisor award-winning training camp, where we train fitness and action sports together while learning to live a healthy lifestyle and, maybe most importantly, have fun at the same time. And if you're really serious about improving yourself, you should definitely check out my full online courses, where I share step-by-step programs on how I developed my own routines over the last 12 years as a CEO, working in 4 different countries, while being a successful competitive athlete with more than 20 years of experience in fitness and nutrition. Check the link in the description for that. And in any case, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, be awesome, believe in yourself, and see you on the next one.